Call the Park and Rec Commission meeting July 22nd, 2014 to order. Have the pledge. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Second reminder on cell phones, all cell phones turned off. And you do roll call?
Let the record show that all of the commissioners are present except Howard Gould and James Hale.
We don't see anything scheduled for ceremonies or announcements. We'll go down to, anybody have a conflict with anything on the agenda tonight? Okay, I don't. We'll go to the consent. Number 1, approval of the minutes. Have a motion?
Make a motion, we approve the minutes from June 24th at the workshop.
I second it.
Roll call vote, Davis.
Aye.
Gurley.
Aye.
Martinez.
Aye.
Nordum.
Aye.
Hodel.
Aye.
Okay, we have no public hearings. We have some unfinished old business. Dave, a level of service update?
All of you received this in your packet, so I think we last revised it at the end of 2012. We're using the old census amounts. I went with our latest projected population, which is now over 30,000, so the city continues to grow. So I wanted to go over some of the areas where we need to add facilities or amenities. Before I get to that, though, if you take that same amount and you take our level of service of 6 acres of level 1 or active park and 10 acres of level 2 or passive or reserve park, for the first time we've seen quite a bit of a change in there where we're deficient. And part of that has to do with the growth cycle. We have some parks that are due to come in, but before, when we've kind of just stayed within a few, say 5 acres within either way, for the first time we're at about 39 acres deficient. And that would be 20 acres of level 1 or developed park and 18 acres of level 2. Now, mind you, level 2 land can be developed into level 1. So there are some areas we have in reserve. A good example would be Black Bay, where we have phases ready to go in. We just haven't developed them. And so some parks change over time. Others, like the Crutch property, the Chameleon Trails, those all stay in, for the most part, will stay in that level 2 service. So I just wanted to point that out before I go into the facilities there. Overall, we're not in bad shape. When you consider that we haven't put in a park for a few years now. We have done some upgrades and stuff and increased capacities, but one of the big things, splash pad, which you're all aware of, that's one of the glaring deficiencies. A dog park would be that second one where you have a 1 minimum. Those are probably the two big areas. I'm trying to read from here. Okay, basketball courts and volleyball courts, those are indoor facilities. As always, we're kind of lagging in there, and that's a challenge because we utilize the school district in our agreement with the Boys and Girls Club for land or for use of their gyms, but at some point we're going to have to look at another partnership with the school district to maybe double the size of a gym if they're putting in a new school. The other thing is we may need to consider at some point pushing to have our own gym complex put in. Maybe it's a 3-court gym that could do volleyball and basketball, but that's indoor space is always at a premium. So it's really not a surprise there. We've seen that for a while. Lawn activity sites were slightly down there, but that just goes with the fact we haven't put in a park. The last one was Park in the Meadows. when you start looking at some of the outdoor facilities, our outdoor basketball court is a needed amenity. Picnic shelters, and that does not include the mini shelters or the covered tables. But we are continuing to, needing to add to that. So you're looking at lawn activities, outdoor basketball courts, picnic shelters, other facility, BMX track. That was on our list there, so along with the dog park. That would be another one that we're short there, and of course the sports complex. As far as other facilities that we said, we hadn't determined at the time what should be brought in, but considering as we're looking at a neighborhood park, things that fit into there, really your electronic playground, which is a little bit for it's the active park. That's where I wish I could remember the game, the one where you have to follow the lights. Is that Simon? I think
Yeah.
that's what they call it. Well, that's the commercial version of it. And it has been around for about 12 years, and they're holding up. I was a naysayer because I didn't think they could make something that would be electronic and last, but I'm hearing it does. So you have that. You have your inclusion park. We get a little bit of pressure from that they want to see some kind of sensory park. That could be done on a portion of a neighborhood park. Some type of outdoor education, and then your themed playgrounds and tot lots. So those are some of the big things that would fit into the neighborhood parks. In here, pickleball, we have a minimum of one. We've got 3 courts, but I can tell you that they've become very popular. Whether that will continue or not, I don't know, but I can tell you there's a demand for it right now. So I think the good news is overall, our amenity projection or level of service is still right on. I'm sorry, the one I missed, of course, on the top was amphitheater. So as you work on the design, as you look at the Tullamore Park, as we work on other parkland, this is stuff we got to keep in mind is where we're deficient, for lack of a better word, or even ones that are coming close. We may be one where we say we need 9.8 and we have 9, so we know that it's coming along. There's other ones that are further off that we don't have to worry about too much. So as far as updating this and going back through for you folks, we're scheduled to do that next year. So we do it every 2 years. So I guess any questions?
Lawn activity sites. Be a little more descriptive.
Yeah, we used to say horseshoe pits. I think when we first started out, it was
It changes like
Well, we
pickleball,
had, I
whatever
think it
you
was-
don't know.
one horseshoe pit for every 500. We quickly realized that doesn't work. So we started changing it down, and then we realized there were other things. So that could be a bocce ball. That could be badminton, croquet, which is a really nice level piece of grass there. The horseshoes, anything that would be just that, a lawn activity. So we're not going to say that every park has to have, bocce ball, or every park has to have, well, we don't do lawn darts anymore, but that was a great, safe sport. But, we try to give it a little bit of its own unique blend in there, but just something where a family can get together or a group and do whatever they want. The lawn bowling,
Staying with your comment about the lawn activities, you mentioned badminton. Badminton was an indoor popular sport years ago. Is there any indoor badminton now?
no
facility.
facility,
Demand.
we don't see a demand, although you will see it out. Some people will bring their sets from home, they'll put it out in the park and they'll play that, or sometimes they'll play on the sand volleyball courts. A little bit different height, but I think what you can do is you can make the facilities available, so if people want to do it, but it's that multi-use.
Thank you.
Where's the basketball and the splash pad targeted for which parks?
Where are they at, or?
Where would they be? you're looking at the list if we added one?
Well, Splash Pad, originally, Tullamore had it up in their business section. So that was been the original discussion, was bringing in a splash pad into it. I think we're back in some of those discussions about splash pads. Again, we've talked about putting one up at Syringa Park. There's space in there that's not being used, and we're hearing demand from the residents there. You're not looking at probably for something where we're going to do a retrofit. We're going to put it into a park that isn't as heavily used yet. It doesn't make sense to go put one into Camelin Park or White Pine Park. They're already at capacity. So you got to have it so it blends in. You want it around a neighborhood, but something like that would be a fairly small one. Where if you're putting it into a new park, you'd probably go a little bit larger. You're not going to have a giant splash pad, just like we're not going to put in 17 outdoor basketball courts either, because of parking needs. These are neighborhood/community parks, so kind of everything's in moderate. We wouldn't put in one of our large picnic shelters like the Grand Pavilion. We'd put in a medium-sized picnic shelter, kind of like the picnic shelter down at Camelin Park, one that holds about 75 people.
Yeah, I didn't really get the splash pad deal till I went to McEwen, and I've seen that. I don't know how many of you have been down there. It's crazy.
Yeah.
It's crazy.
They are
successful.
They're in high demand. And that actually was the evolution of the wading pools. And it was, I'd say, probably the mid-'80s when some of the laws changed and you actually had to have a lifeguard at a wading pool. And it became very expensive for departments to have them. So a lot of the cities just filled them in. Either turned them into big sand boxes or they just poured cement into them and just covered them. But you still had that demand. And so the thought went into it by the playground designers and landscape architects, what can you do that would give you that same experience? And then they found, out that it didn't have to just be for little kids to go through, it was for everybody.
It's a good project.
Any other questions?
Thank you.
So, the bad news is we are short on land. The good news is our level of service, we're still maintaining that pretty well.
That's good. As we continue to grow, we had
Yeah.
a compound. Thank you. The next item on our agenda, number 2, Tullamore update.
Okay. Go.
Change hats. Kind of.
Drink a little bit of water. Bear with me for a second. I'm trying to be high-tech here. And Lucas is probably just laughing at me.
Dave, do you want my stuff?
No, I've got it all here. I'm feeling pretty comfortable, I wrote down what bookmark I had to go to and everything, so this is pretty good. And if I need to read it bigger, there. As we talked about at the last meeting, some of the changes happening with the Tullamore development, new developers that are stepping in. We have the old design that was approved. They did go to planning and zoning and asked for a PUD amendment. In your packet that was sent to you had the staff memo from myself, the follow-up documents from our meeting, your motion of your conditions, your requests, all that stuff went through. The PUD was recommended, or amendment was recommended, and will be sent on to council. Conditions on it that were placed by planning and zoning in relation to the community parks and open space were, let's see, the staff proposes the following conditions. Outside of the future community park site to be dedicated to the city of Post Falls, the open space provided in a PUD shall be held and maintained for the use of the owners or residents within the development, as well as open to use by the general public. As part of the final PUD for Phase 2B, the applicant and owner shall agree to dedicate either the original park site that was approved by the City Council or the 8.5-acre site as requested by the Park and Rec Commission, with a total community park area to be no less than 7.08 acres, which is the original park site. The applicant or the responsible party for the development of the future city park will work with the Parks and Recreation Department and the Parks and Recreation Commission to finalize the design, the park components, and construction schedule for the community park. Additionally, the applicant shall modify the park and rec, or the park development timeline for the community park to include the Parks and Recreation Commission in the preliminary design and review of the park. At a second public meeting with the commission to be held during the regular September meeting, and the final design approval by the City Council. If a new design cannot be agreed upon, then the original approved park design will remain in effect. So that's your guarantee, or your hammer, if you will. And prior to any additional phases of the residential development beyond Phase 2B, the applicant, owner, developer shall either bond for or construct the community park improvements. So that does allow them some leeway in there if there's a market condition or if it's weather, whatever. If the construction's going to be delayed, they can bond for it. Okay. Other
Were our comments helpful?
I think so. I'm just checking to see, on your page 15 of your documents in there, you could see the PUD requirements as you requested them, and also your park development timeline. So that was included, and that's what that last memo from Hillary kind of just followed over. So you have all of that. I think at this point, I have had I can say this, I've had an initial meeting with Susan Moss, who's here to talk to you tonight, and along with Susan, with Steve. So we sat down, went over some of the issues. We talked about the fact that we did not want the swale as part of the park. We did not want that as part of the calculation. That there was a concern about the shared parking, and that we wanted to have some control over the parking when you're talking about an apartment, which is a 24/7 operation, versus a business or a church that isn't there 24/7. So that's some of the stuff that's going to have to be hammered out. Obviously, Susan will be talking more tonight a little bit about the park. I don't expect decisions to be made. I don't think you folks expect decisions to be made, but it's more of a chance to see kind of where they're headed, what maybe give a little bit of direction, but more importantly, probably to give you an idea of when we need to set up a workshop or a special meeting to discuss this with them. Because it is going to meet that timeline. You know, we're talking about July and August for the preliminary design work. That's needed to hit the September public on-site meeting. If we do have a delay, you could do an early on-site meeting in October. But beyond that, it starts pushing it back pretty far. So it's going to mean probably a few workshops. And that might be part of your discussion. Tonight, Susan's going to talk. We've asked her to, bring a bubble diagram of where the buildable areas are. That was one of the issues that came up when they looked at where a lot of the topsoil had been placed and pulled out. It made it so that you couldn't build the apartments on it. It also limits maybe some of the road construction or the parking lot construction. So that'll be in there. Ask for proposed footprint overlays of the original footprint, and then also samples of themes or design elements, so you can, I guess, start that dialogue. So I'm open for any questions, and if not, you get to hear from Susan.
I think until I see
Okay?
presentation, I have a comment.
Okay. I think it's your chance, Susan. You said you're...
Okay. Sorry, Louise. Okay. Hi, I'm Susan Moss, and I'm helping Steve White with this park plan for Tullamore. And what we've found out with this park plan is this area along here especially is with the fill dirt, along with the fill area, the big hole. So we're going to be filling that area also. So this area we really can't build anything on, and so right here we have the picnic area, hopefully, with lots of trees. We're hoping to have, I think it's White Pine Park has tons of trees. Everyone loves it because they're in the shade. So we're going to try and get that to at least the picnic areas. And so near the picnic areas and the parking, we have the play structures, which would be just different types of play structures, which we can go over a little later. And then the splash pad, which doesn't have to be in one unit. It can be in one area and then scooted over a little bit for the tots to play in. And we have ADA access to that area. And then we, of course, need to screen off this beautiful pump station, I believe. And Dave did say the swale wasn't going to be part of it. I don't have that written down here, but this area is not part of the park. So, and then along this sidewalk here, we're going to have basketball. We have planned a full-size basketball court and 2 pickleball courts. And so then we have a large area in here that is for open play, which we're hoping to have a slight slope where people can come and play badminton or bocce ball or whatever. So it's just a large open area. And then over here, we've brought in some parking into the site. Then we have the large picnic shelter that would hold 75 people in this area, which also can be used for the amphitheater. So that we'll take all of that into consideration, along with having trees to shade the area. I did hear from Steve, and he was thinking that this road might go straight through, so therefore we would take up some more land for the park too. Any questions on the bubble diagram?
On the right side by the picnic area, the play structure, splash pad, the parking area, how many vehicles?
Oh dear. I'm thinking, as I recall, about 20 parking spaces that we have right now.
And in the splash pad, can you expand on that a little bit, on how many?
Well, that's okay, I would like for all of us to think about that. The splash pad on here, which you can't see, this splash pad is just a very small one, so we kind of have to figure out if we're just doing a small splash pad, a larger one, just have the tots to one side or whatever. So that's kind of in the process. And they have many themes to go with, so we're not even to the theme part yet because we need to talk to the community about that. So my thinking is to have an area and then pull it off a bit for the younger kids that might be closer to the picnic area. So the splash pad is kind of a development. One thing I was told that a good thing to remember about a splash pad is you want to make sure that you can, in the future, add on to it. So you design it so that you can add on to it. And okay, so we have this, any other questions? Okay.
So you don't have a measurement of what that footprint is in that area?
I don't, of this area.
I'm not seeing what you're looking at, yeah.
Okay, so I just, I have a couple of, it kind of depends on how many people you plan on taking care of at one time and the age groups. So, like, I've seen splash pads that are 30 by 30 and 50 by 50 with different shapes. So we kind of have to go and
Well, I meant
choose.
that whole area, the play structure, splash pad, I mean, what, have you figured out about what that size is going to be, or is it still kind of on the table?
It's still up in the air, because we
Okay.
have to know how many people we're dealing with.
Sure.
Now, the play structure, it doesn't have to be all in this one area. We can use different place structures throughout the site, but we're thinking of 18 to 20 events, so that, so I don't really want to, I wouldn't want to keep all of it in one area. I want to move it around a little bit.
And some of these details, if I can interject, this is stuff that you guys would be going over in,
Public meeting?
well, actually in your first initial meetings, and then bring it forward to the public and we tweak it. We don't come in with a blank slate, but there's certain standards in there that, you know, we're going to look at, the ADA requirements, maintenance. I know you mentioned having the playgrounds broken up and in different areas, but then that increases our maintenance costs in all the ADA wood chips that we have to have, the 5-bar that's put in, or if we go to a rubber mulch or whatever. So, because you have to have fall zones, and the thing with like a swing takes up a huge area. So when it stands alone, it's fairly expensive, really. I mean, the piece isn't cheap to put in, but to maintain it, to have that becomes an expense. But when it's tied into an existing other structure because of the fall zones, you can play off of some of those. The same holds true with your splash pad. It doesn't have to be a circle. It can be a different shape, but you also want to have a surface, a hard surface, whether it's a rubberized, a tile, rubberized tile, poured-in-place tile, or concrete. But you want it so that they're not going through grass or dirt or whatever that brings it into it. So, but those are all little details. Really, when we sat down, we talked about some of the facilities. You know, things we talked about were the picnic shelter, the quality. It can't just be a pole barn. It has to be, you know, a nice-looking structure. The quality of the playground. There's a few manufacturers out there that we use. We'd want to see that. And I think it all blends in. So actual placement, really, it's trying to get an idea where you can have your parking lots, where they're recommending the playground should be, or the restroom, or any of that stuff. And that's something I didn't see on that bubble diagram, but, you know, that's kind of pushing things around a little bit, and that's what you guys will be doing in your workshop.
So then the additional parking is off of what we originally considered share parking, correct? Is that,
This shows it that way. So
so that was what we were looking at as shared, but then that other little piece, is that also shared, or is that parking for
this
the park?
one, this one right now comes off of the shared parking, and you probably, well, it depends. This is going to be a pretty busy road, so it kind of depends on what the city will allow us to do.
Okay.
And that was the reasoning behind the one driveway there.
So I wasn't sure if then that is still shared parking on that
Oh.
side, or that's parking for the park?
Well, we additionally added that on for the park.
Okay.
How you,
It looks like overflow parking.
It does, yeah.
For the multifamily.
And I realize we're preliminary, but we're probably looking at 30 parking spots in this example. My following, not only with what Coeur d'Alene recently done, but other communities, is the splash pads have been 300, 400, 500% higher usage than anticipated, and not that we're going to accommodate all of Post Falls at that one facility, but we see parking, some of our other parks, White Pine, we have a parking problem. Yes, I have some, yeah.
Well, the reason I asked is just because there's apartments all around it, so
Right.
I'm sure that it'll get heavy use from the people who are residing there. But like Jamie said, then the parking that you have in the park becomes overflow parking for those residents, so.
Yeah, I believe Steve said that there was more parking than was needed for the apartment buildings right now. But,
Okay,
Yeah, that's something we have to get.
in the future, what we're
Right.
looking at moving forward, but, okay.
Susan, with that size that you have there, what's the acreage on it that you guys have? in your
I
diagram?
measured it and I didn't write it down, I'm sorry. It must be around 7, I thought.
Okay.
But it sounds like we need a minimum of, what, 7.08?
That would be-
I think with this addition, if it's not that already, because they should have had it that correct, there'll be more land too.
Well, I think we were looking at the original footprint of 8-point-something acres, but then planning and zoning's recommendation was no less than that. If we can't come to an agreement, then it would go back to the original amount of 8, whatever it was. 8, was it
Yeah,
8?
7.08 is the original design of the park.
Okay.
With the pond, the stream.
Oh,
All
okay.
of that. So that's where that comes in. The recommendation or acceptance of Park and Rec Commission was the 8.5, which is the original park boundaries that were submitted, and then this is the changed footprint. And that's where you have that parking in there against the, I don't know if that's a well?
Around.
Yeah, it's a well. So I think that's something that has to be determined is that still the footprint there and it goes further up, or just how we come out with, and that's part of the negotiations.
And for some of us on the commission, you know, we've sat through this the very original, all the way through. So it's such a drastic change that we really are just wanting to make sure that, like Dave was going over earlier, the deficiencies that we have to service the community. Can this park take some of those? It looks like you're taking some of those into consideration, which we appreciate. But also, too, some of us have seen such a dramatic change and cut and cut and cut into what that park was originally supposed to be. So we're keeping an open mind. And the parking is just an issue because it's such an issue with some of the other parks that we
Right,
have. So.
right.
And then that cuts into more of the green area where families are enjoying. So if we're asking weird questions, I think
Oh,
that's
no, no,
kind of
no.
where it comes from.
No, I mean, especially, you need enough parking for a park, that's very true. There's parking along here too, of course, that you know, but yeah, we'll look into the parking, and when we have our workshops, we can always, you know, go from there too and add. Okay, so, we talked about the splash pad. Also, an idea about the splash pad is putting fencing or bollards, something around it so that we don't have vehicles going into the splash pad. That's a good idea. And let's see, so we're also thinking of play structures as doing something a little different. So rope play structures seem to be popular now. So we're kind of thinking about that, trying to find out what is available to us. And of course, we'll have the swing set and the slide with it too. So we'll have some traditional things that kids always love. But during these meetings that we'll have with the community, we hope to get good input from everyone on that. And along with that, having structures that will shade the children, everybody. So if we can't do it with trees, maybe we can add some extra structures, overhead structures. I talked to someone about this sort of cloth type awning, and you know, it's supposed to last for so many years, but you take it down for winter. So that should help out and even give us a little bit more time with that. So any questions on that portion you want to see? No? Okay. And then we'll go to the picnic shelter. Can't see it, but that picnic shelter is large enough for 75 people. And then we're talking about kind of upgrading it a little bit to make it fit the Post Falls image there. We'll also have the restrooms that Post Falls has, and the garbage. Let's see, the picnic tables, and then bike racks. We're going to, not the loop, but separate little units for bike racks. That seems to be what people want to use now. And then this just shows that we're going to have a full basketball court, and then 2 pickleball courts. So that's basically what we're showing and going into. So any other questions? No? Okay,
Thank you.
thanks.
Susan, I know you said it was too early for you to come up with themes, but are there design elements you've talked about that you're looking to incorporate into there, or?
Design elements.
Some of the things that we've talked about is maybe having a theme of a founder's park, so it would have that, or originally Tullamore was more of a Celtic type, theme, and
I think in some of our parks, we go very natural. Others are probably a little more vibrant in their look and stuff, so that's what.
Yeah, no, we haven't gone to the theme yet because we want to hear what the people want.
And then some, like the pickleball, my question, I know it's really popular right now, but if according to the standards you just showed us, we have 2 more than what the national average is, but,
That's not national average, that's what you folks decided.
okay.
A year ago, that 1 minimum.
Okay, but every time I go down Spokane Street, they're swamped, so I understand it's pretty popular right now, but I didn't know if that would take us way over what we need versus something else.
When we go to a 1 minimum, that's just our starting point.
Okay.
So to add a couple wouldn't be a bad thing. You may want to consider not just putting in 1 basketball court, but putting in 2. That's one of the things about White Pine that's very popular, is the fact that you can have 2 games going at the same time.
Dave, are you familiar at all with those play structures that have the rope in them and what the quality is like and the maintenance and?
We have one at Hildy Kellogg Park. We were the first ones to bring one in to the region. It's held up very well. The one structure that they showed, there's not several companies coming out, so we just have to follow up what they're made of, and then call some of the places that have actually used them. Space Nets, which I can't tell you who owns it anymore. That might be Little Tyke that owns it now. That one has held up quite well. There's a little bit of engineering that goes into them, into the installation and construction. They're a little bit different on that, but the one thing I would look at any of those is the nets, the sliding of those are not meeting the ADA requirements. So there would have to be some facilities to meet that,
Oh, yes.
so.
Questions? Thank you, Susan.
Thank you.
Okay, any citizen issues? See, we had a gentleman come in. New business, anyone? No new business. We'll move on to number 6, administrative staff reports. Dave?
Actually, did you have a citizen comment by chance? Okay, just didn't want you to miss your chance there. I think if we could back to the Tullamore, if you could send to Penny what some of your availability is in the beginning, say the first couple weeks of August, for days that you might be available for a meeting with Steve and Susan to go over some of this stuff. So it's going to take a few times. It's going to mean sitting down and really looking at, what are important elements to you, and how the footprint lays and all of that. So there's a little bit more work to be hammered out.
I do have a question.
Yes.
Or maybe a comment. I felt like the presentation was just to kind of let us know, what page you're on, and we know kind of a direction we want to go. We really like to hear from the public at those workshops, too. But I didn't think that we would, we talked a little bit about detail, but I thought maybe we were leaving those details when we actually meet. Is that correct? Was there some other thing that maybe we were hoping to ask? Because I just felt like we were looking at your presentation just to get an idea of where you were talking about on requirements and quality, and then we'll kind of look at details as we go along. Is that correct, or was there another?
No, that's probably correct assessment of what went on. I think in your workshop with them, you're going to really look at, is it one basketball court or two? When you're looking at playgrounds, will it be multiple spots? Will it be condensed? How will the parking be in one or two spots? How the issue of the shared parking will be. Pathways around, how it interfaces into the apartments. Other things that are just taken care of through our design, our irrigation system. We have a system that we use. The type of grass that we put in, we have that set. What you saw there was the in-ground garbage cans that we use. Those are pretty well set. Location, that's not a real big issue, but it's that how many of things. The picnic shelter, is one of that shape acceptable? Do you want something that's a little bit different? And that's part of it, is coming back to the public. As we do in all of our public meetings on site, is we have a general layout of what we're going to do. We let them know what we can and can't do, what are the common elements of a neighborhood or community park. And then we take feedback. Some of that is in design. Some of it is for some things that they would like to see, or maybe they don't want, they're concerned about parking being too close to their home, or how it angles in, or where the picnic shelter is. Those are things that we pick up in the public meetings. The idea of the public meeting is to fine-tune a basic concept. But I think in your workshops, you're going to have to, look at distances, what's the size of the splash pad, what is the age you want, and then we'll talk about the maintenance costs and what we see, because obviously, splash pad, one of the things we talked about was, what are the options there? If we go to a system that recirculates the water, you're talking about a swimming pool. That's too expensive for us to operate. If we have one that is a low flow, the water goes into a holding tank, that's something we can manage. Coeur d'Alene, that's what they're doing with this one. They have one that just goes out into their sewer system. But the one at McEwen, it's huge. It's 65,000 gallons. Now, the splash pad does not generate that much water. I can tell you that right now. They have to augment that, but they use it as a holding tank, so their whole irrigation system runs off of it. I don't see us doing that. That's a lot of expense there. I think what we can do is take the same type of holding tank, smaller, and that has to be calculated out. It's based on the water flow, the type of amenities in it, whether they're the water cascading down, whether it's jets coming up, whether it's misting. All of those play a part, but that will take care of, maybe that's what irrigates the trees or a couple sections of the park, and then we have the rest of the park run off of, the city water, Ross Point water, whoever our provider is. But that's...
I just wanted to make sure that our silence wasn't, that you weren't getting the wrong message, because there is so much for us to, when we were like, what do you think that area is going to be, those sizes, and you obviously don't know, but hopefully that's good information to take back, so that when we do meet, we kind of have what your proposed expectations are versus ours too.
Right.
I just, we were just so quiet, and I know that this is an important project to us, and
And after, I won't say hundreds of hours, but many, many, many hours of looking at Tullamore over the years, and I understand it's preliminary, and we're going to have some future workshops.
Yeah.
Are we here, are we stopping again and starting over? So I'm looking forward to the workshop.
Me
You make
too.
some great points, Tammy.
Maybe think of this as the first blind date.
That's-
A little
that's-
awkward silence, there's a
That's
little
so
bit of going
funny you
on.
said that,
You know,
'cause
the
I
next
thought-
meeting, you guys will have more to talk about.
Good point.
But it is a challenge of opening up communication. You do have a developer who, you know, this is an obligation that they have to get through, but their priorities, they have to deal with the roads, they have to deal with sewer system, they have to deal with everything, and we're part of it. But your focus is the parks and making sure it fits within our system. My concern is it meets our master plans, it meets our design standards, our quality that we're pushing for. And I think that's one thing that Steve and I are in agreement is, we want a park that people will use. It does us no good to put in a park that's not wanted by the public, not being used. But it also doesn't mean that just the neighborhood has a say in it. And that's why we've always done it how we've done, and we've been very successful. We do an on-site meeting there. We listen to the neighbors. We do a second one here in the council chambers for the whole community, because they are community parks. And we find that balance. Yeah. So,
Good point.
does that answer it a little bit better?
Yeah, I just swallowed wrong.
Okay.
So- Excuse me.
Back to staffing.
Okay, department, let me get to. Okay, I guess on the staffing, just wanted to keep you folks in the loop. Did go back before city council, the proposed structure changes in our department, they were accepted. So we are in the process of having a park manager. That'll be going out by the end of the month. We also will be hiring our construction supervisor, once again, going out at the end of the month. We do have a park worker position open. We actually had it filled, and the person was here for 1 week before they gave notice. They had a better offer. You know, it's a job market that's heating up pretty good. We also have a department specialist, so that's our secretarial support staff in the park. So right now, by the end of the month, we'll have 4 positions that are open. I think
I've
got a-
always thought that you're looking for the right person and not just filling a position is a position that I've kind of admired. So, you know, just because we have an opening doesn't mean we hire somebody who comes along.
No, we operate too tight to just have a warm body. The challenge with all of this is we've lost some very good employees who had a lot of skills, a lot of experience. On a nice side, though, we've been able to take a few of our good employees. We did elevate Preston from a park worker to our urban forester. You know, so, and we may find that with our construction worker. I know I've had a lot of interest inside and outside the department, same with other positions. You know, and if we can move people up, if they're the best person, but we do open them up to just make sure. And the idea is to keep that quality. You know, we're going to continue to see some turnover. I didn't bring it with me, so, but it's not just our department. The city's had a lot of turnover. I think the police department leads number 1, we're number 2. We've had 7 positions turn over in the last year. So, you know, it hurts a little bit, so if you go out in the parks and you see some weeds out there, or you see some brown spots, or you see whatever, we're kind of operating a little bit thin.
I would say, with
So,
short that people.
but I think the staff has stepped up. They've, you know, done a good job. They did a spectacular job during the Post Falls Festival. Heard a lot of vendors and public just tell us how well the staff did, keeping the park clean, keeping traffic moving, keeping the power going, water, you name it, they were there. And that's, I think that says a lot about them.
We did a tour last month. I was impressed with what we seen. Okay, move on. We'll go to any commissioner comments. Jamie, anybody? No? Okay.
I just want to say that this summer I've got to have my first real personal experience with Camp Camelin. And my grandson went week 3 and he's there this week. And he just loves it. He comes home super happy. He had a really good day every day.
Good. Is he tired?
Yes.
That's,
Very tired.
Okay, number 8, executive session. We have any matters that need discussed in executive?
yes, we do.
Okay,
Okay, you ready?
have a motion?
I move to enter into executive session for the following purposes pursuant to Idaho Code Section 672345, subsection 1C, to acquire an interest in real property which is not owned by a public agency, and further that no final action or making of any final decision shall be made in the executive session, and that the executive session shall last no longer than 45 minutes.
Second?
I'll second.
Who seconded? Okay.
Roll call.
Davis. Aye. Curley.
Aye.
Genus. Aye. Nordum.
Aye.
Hodel.
Aye.
Session.
Again?
That's what it says on here.
Okay, I think we
in.
do. We'll do it again.
So that we have to move
Okay, I need a motion to move back into regular section.
I move to enter back into regular session.
Second,
I'll second.
roll call.
Okay, roll call. Davis.
Aye.
Gorley.
Aye.
Tennis. Nordum.
Aye.
Poodle.
Aye.
Back in session. Okay, we're finished with all the regular business. Anybody have any comments before we close? I'll make a motion, we adjourn. Second,
Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Adjourned.